would be better for the UFC? Strickland winning or DDP winning? Serious question. Like, let me know what you think in the comments. Who do you think the UFC would want to win more from a business perspective? At the end of the day, right now, I've got a couple questions for you. Number one, who do you think the UFC wants to win? Number two, who do you think has the best chance of being a long-term reigning champion? Like, who do you think will stand up to, essentially, Khamzat Chimaev, Nasruddin Imavov the best? Dricus Du Plessis or Sean Strickland? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you wouldn't mind, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps with the algorithm, and it helps grow the channel. Because right now we're in a situation where if Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland fight, and Strickland wins, right, especially if it's a really exciting fight, which the first one was, they could do an immediate trilogy and kind of close out the books that way. We could see a situation where if Strickland wins, which I kind of think the UFC wants this right now, Strickland's a PR nightmare, right? Like, he says so much crazy stuff that having him as champion is not the best, right? From a business perspective. Let's be honest here. However, I think the UFC in this circumstance would be willing to make that sort of exception, you know, if there is sort of that criticism that a lot of you put out there that the UFC kind of rigs these fights to get the people. I don't think they do that, to be honest with you. But if they did, right, they would probably want it to lean a bit more to Strickland. And the reason I say that is not necessarily as a long-term champion, but I think because of the build-up between a fight between Chimaev and Strickland, right? So, as you saw yesterday, probably in the press conference, he basically was criticizing his relationship with Kadyrov, his crypto scam, you know, all of these different things, which, you know, legitimate points, right? He was making some legitimate points there. And at the end of the day, like, it does seem that there's definitely some underlying racism with Sean Strickland and Muslims. Like, he's said things like, you know, Muslims don't belong in America. He called, you know, Palestinians dirty Palestinians. Just a bunch of different stuff like that, right? So if he wins, right, if they don't do an immediate rematch between him and Dricus Du Plessis, which, like, I think if he wins, the fight between him and Chimaev would be bigger, right? I think it could definitely sell a lot more, just because he clearly has that animosity towards Chimaev. He clearly has sort of that, you know, anti-Muslim thing going on, and he's clearly, like, calling out Chimaev on his behavior, and rightfully so a little bit, right? Like, and I'm a Chimaev fan, but that crypto scam, right? You know, the relationship with the Chechen dictator, like, all of these things are legitimately, like, not good things, right? And so he's got a point there. And at the same time, you know, Chimaev probably isn't going to take these insults super well. So if it comes a point where, you know, Strickland ends up winning, I think the UFC would much rather have Strickland and Chimaev fight. Right? I just think that would sell a lot more. That being said, I don't think that Strickland stands much of a chance against Chimaev. Like, I don't know, that's the thing, right? His cardio is so good, Strickland's cardio is so good, that if he can outlast him for a round or two, he could kind of piece him up on the feet in those later rounds. So that is a possibility, right? But that's a big if, right? Because I think if Chimaev gets him down in the first round, like, look at what he did to Robert Whittaker, whose grappling pedigree, at least on paper, is superior to that of Sean Strickland's, right? Look what he did to Kamaru Usman, who actually has a win over Sean Strickland. I get, like, in the past, people get better, I get it, right? So, like, does Sean Strickland stand much of a chance against Chimaev? I don't know, right? And it may be the fact that Chimaev's cardio has improved a lot, right? A lot of people have said that because of this new plan he's on, right? Less training. You know, he was overtraining. It's helping his health better. It's helping his cardio better. All of these things. So, you know, my point is that I think that fight would be a bigger fight, Strickland versus Chimaev, compared to Chimaev versus DDP. But I think if you compare the two, like sort of long term, I think the UFC would prefer DDP. You know what I mean? So like for that one fight, having Sean Strickland versus Chimaev, I think that would sell more pay-per-views than Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. Now, if we're talking about who is the better matchup, I do think Dricus du Plessis has at least a better chance in the grappling side of things. Like, there are videos of him basically stopping takedowns from like 10 people at once. So the guy's clearly got some good, footwork, footwork stability, takedown defense. Will that work against Chimaev, right? Because Robert Whittaker said, like, I don't know how to defend his takedown because he shoots from so far away. You know what he's going to do, and he's essentially going for the ankle or whatever. And he's like, I don't even know how to defend against that. Because, like, a lot of time what you see is you see them go for the hips, right? Or a leg or whatever. But he's going way, way down there from really far away. So it's interesting. So, like, the whole point is, first of all, you've got the situation where if Strickland wins, they could do an immediate rematch to kind of have, that trilogy fight, settle it once and for all. You know what I mean? If Strickland loses, you could have a situation where he fights Imavov again in a rematch. I would say that the UFC would probably want a match between Chimaev and Strickland. I think that would sell so much better than DDP versus Chimaev. But DDP's good on the mic, right? He's a good trash talker. I'd be interested to see how DDP tries to make Chimaev cry as well. I don't think that would happen, right? And then, but I do think, like I said, out of both of those guys, I think DDP would have the better style and more capability to give Chimaev a big fight. But again, like we've seen issues in cardio from Chimaev. So Strickland has a really good chance too. I mean, if he can survive on the ground for, a round or two, I think he could easily, because his cardio is so good, easily win the later championship rounds in the striking, right? In the his jab, he's hard to hit, obviously, so it'd just be Chimaev's way to path to victory would have to be he would need to submit him within the first 2 rounds, I would say. Okay, and if he doesn't, I think Strickland could actually take that. But I think he would have a tough time stopping that grappling because people with better grappling pedigrees couldn't. You know what I mean? So it would be interesting. You could, and Strickland has also worked with Chimaev, right? So he almost would know what to expect. I don't think DDP's had that opportunity, so it would be interesting. But I think DDP has better skills to contend with Chimaev. Either way, I think Chimaev's going to be the champion. I think he beats either one of them. If he gets the next title shot, it just depends on how soon, right? Like, if this is a war, if Strickland takes it, maybe they do a trilogy, right, between him and DDP. But I think the reality is that even if Strickland wins, I think they would do Strickland versus Chimaev first, just because that will sell so much more than a trilogy between him and DDP. So that's what I think.